Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits news video. Well, I promised the other day that I would give my official review on the Zak Bagans Haunted Museum, and here it is. This was something that I've been wanting to visit for so long. I've been talking about the museum for several years now, ever since its inception, ever since Zak first got that idea in his head. And it's been a couple of years, in fact. It's gone through a couple of ups and downs, a lot of delays, it seems, when it comes to its opening. But now that it finally opened last year, I've made it my quest on my next trip to Vegas, which was last week, to finally be able to see it in person. And I did, and it was a pretty good experience. So I'm going to use this particular video to give my thoughts on the museum, both the good and then also some of the bad associated with it. And then I'll include some pictures that I took, and then I'll have to again include pictures found online, only because again they don't allow pictures within most of the museum. But yes, indeed, this will be my official review of the Zak Bagans Haunted Museum. Very, very good stuff in case you ever wanted to go see it there in Las Vegas on your next trip. So let's go ahead and I'll talk about from the beginning all the way to the end, so that way you get a good idea of where I stand on my final notes. So yes, the Zak Bagans Haunted Museum, to find it you have to go towards Fremont Street, like the downtown area in Las Vegas, and then take the equivalent of a right, and then probably go maybe about a couple of blocks a little bit outwards towards a residential area, and then that's where you'll find it. It's very creepy because it just comes up all of a sudden. It's almost like on the corner of a street, but you would totally miss it if you weren't specifically looking for it. It's basically a residential home. It was in fact the largest home in Las Vegas for a good while. Of course, lots of other homes usurped it afterward, but that's why it's so easy to miss. It's a home essentially, and of course Zak converted it from a home to, in this case, the haunted museum. I took a lift to get there from that place to another, and I went with Randy, who you've seen in some of my past videos now, so this was a great experience for the two of us. So we got there, and then we went straight up to the front, and it was really neat too, because there is a guy, I think his name was Mike, who always is pretty much outside just waiting to greet people as they come in. My biggest fear was that I was going to be swamped in a line, like let's say a line around the block, because even now if you go to TripAdvisor you'll see those reviews where people will say show up at least an hour early, be sure you get in line, you're going to be in a large group. Not in our case. When we went there, we were the only ones. In fact, when we were being checked in, we continued to be the only ones there up until the very last moment, when another couple, in this case an older couple, showed up and they were placed into our group. So I was hoping it would be like more of a private tour, just the two of us, but no, in this case it was another couple, but they were very nice, so it was still all good. So in this case it was 4 people within the group. I got tickets on Vegas.com, which is a pretty good website that I like to use frequently. I'm sure you can find tickets everywhere else. The only place I couldn't find tickets were on like the discounted ones, like the half off stuff, or Groupons or other stuff like that. Nothing like that quite yet. It seems like the popularity of the museum is elevating it on its own, so it doesn't really need to go into the discount route. But I like to use Vegas.com because it doesn't add a lot of the surcharges a lot of times on purchases. But yes, we were let in, and then that's when we were introduced to our official tour guide, a guy by the name of Craig. Sure enough, like the other people I mentioned in the reviews, we were first let into like a welcome area. This is inside the actual home, and when you go in, you kind of are given a precursor of what's to expect. Like you'll see these pictures here. In fact, it's a lot of dolls, which by the way is very interesting, and I mentioned this too. The tour guide, his name was Craig, and Craig was also agreeing on this. So Zak apparently has a huge fearfulness of dolls. But for someone who does so, his entire museum is just littered with dolls left and right, almost every corner with these creepy looking things. So I thought to myself, and I told him maybe it's like his way of conquering his fear, and that could be the case. But yes, when you get into that welcome area, you're basically told here's how the tour is going to happen. You have to sign a waiver. Waiver, of course, says that anything that attaches to you or follows you home is not the responsibility of the museum. You're told no pictures, no cameras, nothing. In fact, we had to all shut off our phones completely. Like that you can't even keep them open, like you can't even keep them on. You have to shut them down. And then once all that was said and done, then we went to the famous Zak Bagans what is it called, the fortune machine, and there we were we were able to put in $1, and then he told us in his voice like what was about to happen throughout the rest of the tour. By the way, yes, I did ask, is Zak there? Unfortunately, no. He was out filming, and the way he does it is, according to them, he was filming at several weeks at a time. That's essentially how it works in his TV world. He would be out for several weeks, maybe several months, all in blocks, and then he'll be back. Interesting enough, they told me that he spends most every day there at the museum when he's not away. It seems like this is definitely his baby. He wants to absolutely see it in person, see all the actions as they happen day by day, rather than just being like loosely based away from his home all the time. And it's true, because if again you go to TripAdvisor, you read the reviews, you'll hear people say that they saw Zak within the museum multiple times. Sometimes he's just walking around the hallways themselves. Other times he's able to stop and then just say hello to the group. Sometimes he even gives candy canes as a nice thank you, takes pictures, selfies, I think even a few autographs here and there. But if you happen to go and you're lucky enough when he's not filming, then yes, you'll have a chance to see him there. My luck, it just happened to be where he was away filming at the time, but who knows, next time I'll be able to see him there. I'll touch on that, why I want to return back to it too in a minute. But after that was done, we finally got the tour started. And so the very first places that we were introduced were several rooms. That was the theme of the entire museum. You go in your group room by room by room. The whole idea is you'll stay within each room for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't seem like a lot, which is true, but that's because there's a lot of rooms to see. The tour itself now has been increased. It looks like they took the criticism online about it being too short. It was increased now to 90, maybe even like basically an hour 15 minutes to an hour and a half, because it seemed like it went a little bit between that time period, whereas before people were stating that it was just under an hour. So lots of spaces covered, lots of rooms covered, but just by the very nature of things, it has to be room by room, about 3 to 5 minutes at a time, and then the walking time between the other rooms. But yes, when we started, that was the theme, because there's also other tour groups that start after yours, and then that way when you leave a room, then they come in, and then vice versa. Whenever another tour group is leaving ahead of you, then you go into the room after them. What was interesting to note is that there's a lot of theatrics involved within the museum, because every now and then, while we went by room, and I'll talk about some of the ones that stood out here in a minute, while we went by room, we were introduced to some of the other, I guess you could call them players, within the haunted museum. Like for example, Zak has hired a lot of actors, I guess you could call them, that do little bitty parts in between certain rooms. In some cases, they're little people themselves, they're dwarves. In other cases, they're guys who look like just creepy, and then they'll introduce themselves. Very much a theatrical production. And at the end of the day, it's all good, because when I counted things at the end, it seems like there was at least 8 or 9 people working in the entire museum at that time. So that's 8 or 9 jobs all of a sudden, as opposed to just Zak just using one single guide. No, he goes out of his way, it looks like, to hire all these people to make sure that people have a good experience. And they were fun. Those actors, they were able to play their parts really, really well. introduce certain rooms themselves, talk about other rooms, and in some cases, be warned, they provide a pretty good frightful scare. So if you are, let's say, more on the squeamish side when it comes to these sudden surprises, be forewarned. You're going to have several of those things happen there. But now let's talk about the rooms themselves. So some of the rooms that stood out had to do with the haunted or cursed objects, which was definitely something I wanted to see. Like, for example, we were able to go into a room that happened to have like cursed, haunted dolls, just regular dolls, like no-name dolls. I didn't go in, but Randy did, and when she went in, she was able to see that stuff there. There was like, for example, there was a room that we went in together that continued the theme of haunted dolls. In this case, those marionette dolls, the ones that hang on strings. And then we were told that every now and then these dolls move by themselves, very, very slightly, but you can see the strings move. And sure enough, I looked hard, and then I saw one of the dolls actually twist, like actually move. Now, could it be where some there, behind, let's say there was just a machine, something that just plucks the string, makes it move? It's always a possibility, but I would like to think no, that this was absolutely just something on its own moving, because it is truly haunted. And so I did see that. Another room that we went to involved, and this was highlighted in one of the Ghost Adventures episodes very memorably, it had to do with the room that contains the two caskets within them with real life bones, real life human bones as well. And this was a very, very haunted room, apparently, because there's orbs that are seen there, there's shadow people that are seen there as well. People get touched by some presence there too. And so we got to spend a couple of minutes in that room as well. And then the most famous thing within that room happens to be the Bela Lugosi mirror. Apparently, if you go there, that mirror is always purposely kept hidden unless you request to see it, or unless the tour guide, let's say, allows everyone to see it. And then it's a volunteer basis on who wants to see it and who doesn't. Interestingly enough, I was the only one who decided to see it. I guess everyone else thought to themselves, and maybe let's not take a chance on this, but I did. I was like, sure, I'll see it. And so the mirror opened, and I saw myself, but that was about it. I didn't see anything, because apparently this haunted mirror, this Bela Lugosi mirror, I'm sure if you look it up online, you'll see more details behind its infamousy. But you're supposed to see shadow people. You're supposed to see spirits. You're supposed to see ghosts. You're supposed to even see, in some cases, like weird apparitions, more of the demonic side. Whatever is the case, like, something is supposed to be shown there in the mirror. Sometimes people even state that when they look at it, they see their own face distorted or become distorted. And then in other cases, people stated that they've seen something happen, like a very quick shot of something showcasing their future, something along those lines. I didn't see nothing. Like, I just saw myself staring at the mirror, and then that was it. So the tour guide didn't even look at it. In fact, and he mentioned that some don't do as well. But lo and behold, I did not see anything that stood out, at least for myself. And then that was it for that room. Then we went to another very famous haunting, in this case, Peggy the Doll. I thought I had talked about her before, and I don't recall like anything as far as like a video. I double checked, but I didn't see one. I'll keep double checking just in case. But yes, he has Peggy the Doll within a separate room. When you go there, you walk in, and the whole idea, according to the tour guide, is Peggy is very much so alive. There's something within the doll itself. You have to go in and say, "Hello, Peggy," like in a very sincere manner. Like, you have to introduce yourself. Sometimes you can even say your name along that too. And then that way you're giving the proper respect to Peggy. It reminded me of my famous Robert the Doll video, whenever people were stating all the time, and I see the comments every single day where people say, "Sorry for watching this video, Robert," something along those lines, but in this case it's with Peggy. And then within that room, there she is in the middle of the room in a locked case, like no one can ever touch her. But her room is tied to a spirit box, that machine that just always goes within radio frequencies to pick up words. You can ask questions to Peggy. Apparently sometimes she answers, other times she'll ignore people. Other times she'll just play with them in a nice way, and then other times she'll hate people and then start responding in a very bad manner. So she seems to pick up on these things whenever you're in the room. I was asking questions, just questions like, how do you like the museum, Peggy? Can you say hello, Peggy? Something along those lines. And others were asking similar type questions. She made some responses. It's just hard to pick up on the spirit box. It always is. I have difficulty understanding those words. Sometimes others pick them up much more easily, but we didn't really hear anything. Although Randy mentioned that as soon as she walked into the room, she felt a tug on her arm. Nobody was there tugging on her arm, but she felt it, and she said that she felt it was as if Peggy knew she was there and was saying hello in that manner. So that was a little freaky to find out afterward. But yes, whenever you finish the room and you go out, you also have to state goodbye, Peggy, like in a sincere manner, and then that way you're showing respect. Otherwise, Peggy is supposed to follow you or do something bad if she feels like it. Like if you didn't say goodbye in a proper manner, then and you go someplace else afterward, then she might do some bad things thereafter. So I did the same thing. Of course, I said goodbye, Peggy, and then I went to the next room. Some other rooms that stood out, lots of little trinkets, more rooms involving haunted things. There was a room for Ed Gein, who was the infamous, I guess, was he a cannibal? I don't think he ate actually any people, but instead he was someone who was skinned the skins off of dead bodies, trying to make a suit out of them, an inspiration or something along those lines for Silence of the Lambs. There was the mixing bowl that was in his residence that he used to do some of that stuff. It was within there. That's another place that has a big haunting as well. In fact, people have seen shadow people within that room too. I didn't see anything, although Randy again said she felt something within that room too, a deep heaviness. She's very sensitive to this stuff, so she was the one that was pointing that out. It just didn't happen for me either. Another room that we went to, Dr. Death, in this case Dr. Kevorkian, his van is there too. You get to see the inside of it. You get to see some of the equipment too. There was another room that we visited that was very interesting to me. I never heard of this lady, and I can't remember her name. I've been trying to find it again. I will find it, and I'll do a video on her. This was someone who was very, very smart, a genius. I think one of the smartest women in the world. She was so smart that it kind of drove her crazy. She actually created some self-made devices that apparently opened up realms like to the demonic world. And in her last moments, because she took her own life, she took her own Polaroids of the very last moments of herself. And right before she died, she was stating that, I guess writing down somewhere, that it's too late. Like she opened up this thing, and these things, whatever were coming through, were just destroying her, and then that was it. It was pretty freaky to see those Polaroids, because basically you were seeing the very last seconds of someone's life. She took pictures of herself up to her very last breath in these Polaroids. It's crazy. The 1 minute she's there, like in the Polaroids, alive, the next afterward she's gone. And then the last Polaroid, when it was found, it was cut in half. She didn't cut it. No one else was visiting the place. Something cut the Polaroid in half, as if it was trying to obscure what it was shown in the Polaroid. Like if something was caught on camera, it didn't want to be captured on camera, and so it cut itself to make sure it's not there. So that was very, very freaky to find out. As soon as I find out who that is, I'll post more info on that person in a video. Another room that stood out, an all-star, was the Dybbuk Box. Yes, indeed, we got to see the actual Dybbuk Box. I was hoping it would be there, and yes, it was. This was, I guess you could call it, the most protected room, one of the most, probably the second most protected room in the entire museum. We got to go in. There was great preparation for it. We were told multiple times that some people do not like going into this room. And then some of the tour guides also do not like going into this room. It's your choice if you wanted to. I, of course, said yes, absolutely, let me in. Why don't you open the door yet? That kind of stuff. And so I went in along with the rest of the group, and there it was, right in the middle of the room, secured in a giant glass box. There was this salt surrounding it, that protective salt as well, and then there was sage surrounding it too. And we got to spend about a good 5 minutes within that room too. And the way the tour guide said it was, the Dybbuk box is, of course, never opened anymore. It's just left there as is, but people still within that room, they feel touched. They see apparitions, shadow people as well. There's stuff that's moved within the room too. So this was a very, very guarded room. In other words, it's always locked unless a tour guide opens it to let a tour group in. No way is anybody just there by accident. And then the glass display case is also just left locked as is. The way the tour guide also mentioned it, there's a few times that Zak has ever opened it, and he only does it when he's by himself. Such is the notoriety of this Dybbuk box that he never allows anybody to be within the vicinity of it being open because of the legends tied to it, how this thing that's within it can start attacking people. So if this thing is going to attack anybody, it's only going to attack Zak, and that's how he wants it. But it was pretty awesome to walk into that room and to see it there in all of its glory. I got to walk around it 360 degrees, see its back. I saw some inscriptions in the back part too. I got to see the front. Obviously, you can't see anything inside the box. It is like sealed tight, but it was amazing to wonder, there it is, there's this thing, this Dybbuk within the actual box. It's just waiting to burst open, but it can't because of all the protection surrounding it. My apologies, if I had pictures I would gladly show, like ones that I took, but unfortunately, again, you cannot take any pictures at all. And then we went to some other places after that. He's recreated a lot of things in his dreams, apparently. Like there was this room that had a lot of mechanical mannequins moving in like that weird Silent Hill jittery type movement, and he said, the tour guide said that this is a dream that Zak keeps having. These mannequins are cutting each other up, there's blood everywhere, and they just keep repeating that motion. And so he said this is like him reenacting his dream for the fans to see, so that way they know exactly like what happens in his world. And then there were some other rooms that kind of stood out, but the one I wanted to mention, the big one at the end, happened to do with the Demon House. I talked about that in one of my past videos, the infamous Demon House, the one that Zak Bagans purchased and then eventually did a documentary that's supposed to come out finally later this year. And within it, he then made a documentary and then destroyed the home afterward to ensure that whatever was there does not go out anywhere else and does not plague anyone else afterward. But there was a lot of fanfare going into this room because it houses an artifact from the Demon House. In this case, the stairwell, the staircase, that set of stairs, the ones that go out, I guess, into the basement. It's there now. Lots of hauntings with it. It's supposed to be like the most plagued room when it comes to the entire haunted museum. This one, the tour guide said that he's not going in there. Some of the other tour guides, again, do not as well. People have fainted going into the room. There's like such a strong presence within the room too. Deep set of heaviness, deep set of sadness. Sometimes it's rage, it's anger. People just feel a full gamut of emotions when they walk into that room. So of course, yes, absolutely, I'll go see it. You know, I wanted to go in. I think everyone did too as well. And when we went in, there was the staircase from it, and we were surprised to see this. There's a very large, black, shaggy, pitch black looking thing standing in front of the staircase. And the reason it's there, the tour guide said, is because this is a literal representation of what Zak saw when he went to see the staircase. I guess the very first time or later on within the demon house. He saw this thing there, like this presence was there. He saw it in person, and so he wanted to recreate it so that everyone on the tour can see what it was. And so it was pretty freaky to see that thing there just staring back at us. It looked like a giant shadow person, but with shaggy fur on it, and so that was pretty creepy. But yes, I saw the actual staircase, the infamous staircase from the demon house. I didn't feel anything within the room. Again, Randy did. She felt like a sense of heaviness within the room too. I guess I'm just immune to that kind of stuff, as I mentioned in some of the past videos. But that was a great way to finalize the experience of the Haunted Museum. So very, very fascinating stuff. Other little tidbits from the museum that stood out. Yes, people still, like, whenever you walk throughout certain parts of the tour, people will see stuff in the far background. The basement is not allowed to go in whenever it comes to the tour. It was featured, I think, on 2 episodes now on Ghost Adventures, and you cannot go in there. It's completely cordoned off. Nobody can go in there. I think only Zak does, because it is so haunted. That's the basement of the home, the Haunted Museum, that apparently had large satanic rituals within it, so you cannot go in there at all. I don't even think they allow private tours to go in there either, so that was pretty interesting to find out. There's a gift shop too, a standard gift shop, of course. I was able to purchase some interesting things there. 2 of his books, also one of them signed by him, so that was pretty cool. I have a copy, in other words, signed by him now. Very, very good stuff. And overall, everyone was great, fantastic. The tour guide Craig was amazing. The other actors within the tour were pretty great too. Everyone was just giving it their all, so that was pretty awesome. As far as the bad things within the Haunted Museum, not really much to say. I guess it can only tie to this. There's so much to see, so many rooms, that this is why it needs a revisit. Remember I was mentioning that earlier. In fact, the tour guide Craig was mentioning that people come back multiple times now because there's so much. I'm not kidding when I say there's so much. There's a lot to see, and you're only given minutes to do so at a time. So it creates its own business. Like, you have to come back again to see something you might have missed. It's like revisiting a good game or revisiting a good movie. You'll always catch something again one more time. Such was the case here. Like, this is exactly what it was. So that's the only bad thing that I would mention, but it's not their fault. Otherwise it would have to be like a 3-hour tour, and that's not going to be good for business. Maybe they'll do a 3-hour tour one day for a heavier price, and I would gladly do so. But otherwise, that's the only bad thing about the museum. Fantastic check-in, easy processing, the tours, everything was great. The people there were great. I just wish it could last forever, like basically being there. And then, of course, Zak not being there as well. That was the only loss. But otherwise, it was great. Randy had a really great time too. She was so excited to see this museum as well. This was her first time there, just like me. So that it was great to both experience it too. So, but that's it. If I give it stars out of 5, it would be 5. Absolutely, very, very good stuff. I'm gonna look forward to go seeing it again sometime in the future. I'm just waiting to see later on when I'll have a new opportunity. But if you're going to be in the Las Vegas area, please take that detour and then go see the Haunted Museum. By the way, I'm getting nothing for this. Like, this is not a paid advertisement. This is nothing where I got comp tickets, nothing like that. No, I paid for everything. So this is an honest review. So very, very good stuff. When I say yes, go see this Haunted Museum. You won't regret it. It's a great way to spend a good afternoon. Probably try to go see it during the weekday if you can, like we did. We went in the afternoon, like around 3:30ish, 4 o'clock or so, and that was good time period to not have anybody standing outside. If you go on the weekends, be prepared. That's when apparently there's a line around the block, so you have to be ready for that stuff too. But yes, 5 out of 5 stars. Fantastic museum, highly recommend it. Maybe you'll catch Zak there next time too. And that's it. That's my review. So alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.